Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at pendulum in Python. And you may be aware that a pendulum is something that just swings back and forth. And it does this very consistently with a kind of an old way that people used to tell the time. And that is why pendulum is still date time but better. It is an alternative to the date time class, and it's more intuitive, slightly simpler to use, and has some extra functionality on top. And so it's a great way of working with dates and times in Python. It does have a couple of minor issues, but generally it can replace almost anything. So the first thing we need to do is install with pip. And you'll see that I've already got everything installed. And then we need to import it so that we can use it. And then first we'll look at date time. And so we're going to get the current time in Paris. And you'll see that it's 8:18 and 11 seconds on the 3rd of March. Sorry, the 6th of March. And it tells us that we're in Paris. And if we convert it to Toronto, we see that the time is 6 hours behind. And then we can convert it to a string and see, this is what the time looks like in this common format. And it's worth noting that the time doesn't update. It's now when this was called, and it's not going to change later. We can add days, as you can do with datetime, and we can add months. And this is something you can't actually do with datetime module, which is why Pendulum has a couple of things that are quite nice, that are useful to know. We can also find duration, and so we take a 15-day period, and that turns out to be 2 weeks, 0 months, 0 hours. And that seems quite strange, and that's because it's 15 days and 0 hours. But obviously if we convert it into hours, we see that it's 360 hours. And then, we can convert it into words and see that it's 2 weeks and 1 day. And we can make this longer, so we can make it 80 days and 1 second. And then run it again, and you see that's now 11 weeks and 0 months, because the interval is done based on the weeks and days, not on the months. And a month changes length. We can see how many hours that is 0, and again convert it to hours, put it in words. We've got 11 weeks, 3 days, 1 second. We've also got this period, which is good for finding a repeated set of times in between 2 points. And so again we get the current time. I notice this time with no argument it defaults to my current time zone. And then we get this period, which is the difference between now and 3 days ago. And you'll see that this is going to be a 3-day period, which lasts 72 hours. And if we iterate through it, then we can see what the time was every day for 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 1 day ago, and then right now. And so it allows you to iterate through days. But if we then change this, instead of 3 days to hours equals 72, and do everything again, it still iterates in days, not in hours. So that's something to be aware of. We can also have a look at the local time. The local time zone is Europe London, which is where I am now, and the time zone name is Europe/London. And this is nice to know, just because if you ever want to print it, then you can put it in a neater format. We can get the day of the week, which is 0. So as you can see, Sunday is 0, and then Monday is 1, which I quite like because it kind of balances out the Sunday being the final day of the week and also not being day 1. And we can convert it to a string. So today is the 6th of March. And this isn't a local way of putting it, because in the UK you always write the day first, but it's a way that's universal. We're going to also do formatting. So again, we get the current time, convert it to a string, and this time it's including the time because it's a datetime string, not a date string like we've put here. And we can format it, and you can see that it's much nicer how it says March the 6th and again, this is a date, not a date time, and we can get the date time string. So it's got the day and then the date time, and it's done this in quite a neat formatted way. And then of course there's this nice format method with this fairly kind of understandable format. So if I run both of these, you've got the strf time, which is another way of displaying dates. And things worth noticing are that this one's taken out the leading zeros, whereas strf time doesn't do that. There's no option for getting the th, whereas you can see that there is when you use the pendulum built-in function. And it's just a bit easier to read, like mod I being hours and h being hours. And so pendulum has a lot of neat things you can do. It's quite simple to understand. The only downside compared to datetime is having to install it using pip, and I guess it's not native. But it's a very useful module to know and a great alternative for working with times in Python. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video, you'll use it in your projects. So see you again, same time, next week. Till then.